Hey, this is Mike Shank, and this is the At Speed podcast presented by Rocky Fork Company.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Shank with another episode of At Speed podcast. And you're headed into this weekend. It's a doubleheader weekend again at Iowa on the little bullring at Iowa.
3/4 mile.
Before we talk about things that went on in the last couple of weeks, we'll talk about some good things here.
Yeah.
How fired up are you to have another chance to kind of get things going on a positive note with the IndyCar team?
It's always a great thing. We've had a rough run to the beginning of our season, so it's always a great thing to be able to try to make it better and quickly and not have to stew on it for 2 or 3 weeks like you do sometimes. So we have a lot to talk about here, Tim. A lot of positive things have come out. It's not been all been negative. We just haven't got the finish yet we want. But we look forward to Iowa. We were prepared for this for 3 races in a row, 3 weekends in a row, 5 races actually. And we're jazzed up, ready to go to
Iowa. Real quick, I'm trying to remember. Did Jack run at Iowa?
In the Indy Light car,
Indy Lights,
and he did pretty well there, actually.
Right.
So we're looking forward to it. You know, in an Indy car, in a big car, it's a 16, 17-second lap, so things happen like this. And it's a true bullring for an Indy car. It's always exciting. There's 2 grooves. The upper groove usually always comes in. They're going to let some fans in this year. Even like we had at Road America last weekend.
Yeah.
Limited amount, but there's going to be fans there nonetheless, which we're excited about. But Jack will be part of the rookie class that gets to run a little bit by himself in the first practice session for a half an hour. So that'll help us a lot getting ahead of it before the big group hits the track.
Yeah, and give us an update just on the COVID-19 situation. What has changed for you guys in the last several weeks? I mean, has the resurgence of it in certain places, or the surge of it in certain places? What are you hearing scuttlebutt-wise?
Yeah.
How is it going to affect you guys down the road?
So far, if you want to call it a surge, which I'm not totally sold on, but whatever it is, the increase hasn't affected us too bad. So meaning we had plans, the series, both IMSA and IndyCar had plans going into how the teams are going to react and behave, and how the public were going to react and behave. At Road America is a great example. Well, of course, at Indianapolis at the Brickyard event, we had no fans,
right.
And it was a basic manage the racing folks, which they did a great job. And kept NASCAR separate from IndyCar personnel, and that worked. We go to Road America, we had 5,000 fans there, which were nice, and actually it worked. So the paddock area where we're set up when we're not on track was completely cordoned off to the general public, right? But there was a fence line, so you could the people could come to the fence and still see the cars being worked on. It was a great compromise. Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, all the health and screening process were great. Road America is a huge facility, so it was easy to distance. Everyone distanced there. Iowa will be a little bit different because it's tighter, but again, they're only allowing so many people. And from what I can see, it's perfect. Now, how does this whole thing affect racing? They've really compacted our events, so we're there a day or 2, in some cases less than we were before. And I love it, actually. Now, it makes it very, very busy for the crew, very busy.
Mm-hmm.
But we're in, we're out. It's very cost effective, and we have the least amount of exposure to anything bad.
Give people a sense of logistically of how you guys are handling, for example, meals for the crew.
Right.
Are they being cooked on site? Are you getting catering? Number one. Number 2, when you have spent the night, is the crew using a hotel? I mean, just give people some insight in that.
Yeah, so we private fly into these events early on. That's how we get there. The truck and trailers go by themselves with a couple of truck drivers. Private flight the team the rest of the way to keep really safe. Food and hotels. We do stay at hotels when we have to. But I'm telling you, these hotels, they've never been cleaner. And we kind of have a group of hotels we always stay with. Don't feel unsafe at all myself. Mm-hmm. Finally, food. Food is interesting. Through our technical alliance with Andretti, they have a hospitality unit that we get our grab-and-go food from. So the old buffet style that we always had there is different now. It's in boxes. And we eat back at our trailer. We don't eat in a big cafeteria-like environment. So a lot of that's changed. But, the boys are adapting to it well. The difference is if you want to say what's the biggest difference, it's this fast-paced deal we're at. It used to be we'd come in on Thursday, run only about 45 minutes total on Friday, and then practice. Now it's just like this.
Yeah.
So good news is we get in, we get out. The bad news is it's just paced like this.
Let me ask you, that's an interesting question, though. But now that you've seen another way, y'all are seeing another way of doing things from a race weekend standpoint. Does a 2-day as opposed to a 3-day make more sense to you as like a team owner, but
Absolutely.
also a team guy? Because there's, like you said, there's not a lot of just sitting around waiting around, taking things apart just for the fun of it.
I think what we've discovered, I think NASCAR would say this too, and I think IndyCar is in the middle of discovering this, and IMSA also. They're just a little behind NASCAR because of how things have worked out. They're discovering that we don't need to be on the road this long. We can still have successful, fan-based, generated, driven events without having to be there for 4 and 5 days.
Yeah.
And that saves thousands of dollars. Literally, my hotel bills are 20 to 30% less.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah.
So I think that this is going to lead to an interesting awakening over the next couple years about how to run a race weekend. And on top of that, I think with Roger at the helm of IndyCar, Jim France at the helm of NASCAR, these are two guys that work well together, right? I think you're going to see some combination of things in the coming years that are really interesting and that could drive and re-energize fans in motorsports again.
Give me an example. Like you're talking about.
Here's a great example. Here's something I think would be great. On Friday night, we go to any given track. Let's just call it the road course at Indy. Friday, IMSA run. Saturday, IndyCar run. Sunday, Cup run. Now, and then the under series can wiggle their way. The AAA ball guys can come in and filter in there in different ways.
Yeah, fill the gap, so to speak.
I think if you have a motorhome and you have families, friends that want to come to racing, you're going to see every star in North American racing in one place.
Yeah.
That, to me, represents value. It used to be said, and I remember talking to Jim France about this, They care about their audience so much. They spent millions on polling, just like a politician does. They poll their client, the people that come to the races. And the clients always told them, they said, that they wanted division, church and state, between IndyCar racing and sports car racing and, NASCAR racing. Well,
yeah.
I think we're in a new era now, and I think we're way beyond that. And I can tell you from my perspective, from selling sponsorships and marketing partnerships, having those kind of events make it so much easier for us. There's so much to sell there. And I'm hoping it's kind of the best thing that comes from COVID, actually.
Yeah, I grew up in the era. I grew up in Alabama and Texas, and basically wasn't live racing on television most of the time when I was growing up as a little kid in the 60s and early 70s. But my point was, I grew up as an IndyCar for whatever reason. I liked Indy. I liked Indianapolis, but I liked the IndyCar as opposed to the stock cars.
Sure.
And I also liked Can-Am.
Yeah.
Can-Am. I mean, pardon the expression, but people forget those were some badass machines,
Absolutely.
man.
Yep.
Jim Hall and all those guys. And but I always, why couldn't you go to one place and see all three? I have an appreciation. I wouldn't say I grew up a NASCAR fan, but I have a true appreciation for what they do.
Sure.
But how they race.
And you should.
As Ed Pym, you remember Ed Pym, because he tried both of them at one point, and he goes, the difference between driving an Indy car and driving a stock car, an Indy car, the faster you go, the more it kind of wants to stick to the track.
Yeah.
A stock car, the faster you go, the more it doesn't want to stick to, and it was just
very true.
And the thing is, I think there are a lot of sophisticated race fans out there who understand the difference between these cars.
Absolutely.
And the ilk and what it takes to drive them. And and you think back when Mario Andretti won the Daytona 500,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Or AJ Foyt.
Exactly. There's no reason why you could get some crossover maybe some of these weekends, which would be phenomenal.
I think we're at a real turning, and COVID has forced this, and I'm almost glad it has. We're at a real apex of motorsports in the United States and an opportunity to really bring it together. Something else I learned this week is that Tony Stewart is putting together kind of an IROC-like series soon.
Yeah.
And I think he really wants to go after the old days of IROC, which is, again, a combination. It speaks to this combination, right? And I think he has a great idea there. And I think it has a real opportunity to bring guys like all kinds of guys back into the sport.
Yeah.
Or get the current ones together for the sport.
Equally prepared cars.
Absolutely.
I remember Bobby Rahal and Mario Andretti going at it in the S's at Mid-Ohio back in the mid-'80s, you know.
Sure.
And, I mean, in equally prepared Camaros.
Right. That's right.
That was just great. And, yeah, they're all
And it was a real honor for those guys to
Yeah.
be chosen to do that, a real honor,
Yeah.
right? And I think they had a great time doing it.
Yeah, and you could have, I mean, you know, these teams, like, you know, you talk about Penske got his hand in all three of those series
Yeah.
you just talked about. You could have a Kyle Busch kind of guy drive all three races
You
on
could.
a week, and it would definitely be TV, you know.
Worthy.
Yeah, worthy.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, IMSA-wise, IMSA has an event this coming weekend as we speak here on July the 15th, Tax Day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope you got your taxes in.
I did.
I got mine in, and a lot of workers out there who federal workers can thank me for finally sending my money in. But but my point is, y'all opted to bypass Sebring because it's not.
This can be a
Sebring.
very confusing subject, and because of COVID, just makes it worse. They have we compete for what's called the overall GTD championship, and that's a mixture of long races and short races, sprint races. Last year, IMSA created a thing called a sprint-only championship. And it's mostly all about economics. So if a person didn't want to spend all the money to do the long races, they could do these short races and still go for a championship. Last year, we did all the races and won the championship. This year, we don't really care about the sprint championship. It's the overall championship for us that we're most worried about. And this weekend's event is a sprint-only race, meaning it doesn't count toward the overall championship.
Oh, really?
So we've chosen, because of budgets and the tightness of money this year with COVID, to skip it. And we'll go to Road America in 2 weeks.
This may be going farther than you want to go in this. What do you save? You know, can you give people a ballpark figure on what it costs to do a race weekend?
A couple $100,000 with both cars. So
Wow. Yeah.
over that. So it's a significant amount of money.
That's a significant amount. Yeah. Let's get back to IndyCar now before we talk about Iowa and what's intriguing about Iowa, the bullring. Man, you know, Texas was a learning curve moment for Jack.
It was. Yeah.
But and then Indy, you know, some bad luck happened there, you know, and then this past weekend, just how do you compartmental? Did you have a pep rally kind of meeting with your team, et cetera, after this past weekend? Or?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you listen, we've had 4 races. The first one, not a lot we could do. Jack needed to get up to speed, and it took him the entire day to get up to speed.
Yeah.
Indianapolis.
We're talking about the oval at Texas.
Yeah. Come to Indianapolis. Qualified, practice and qualified as good as it gets practically, right? And ran on the same strategies as the other 2 Penskes, half the race in P3, 2-3, right?
Yeah.
Right where everything was fine. The problem is an ill-timed yellow came out that and half the field had already pitted. Us and the 2 Penskes were caught out then. We call that being exposed, okay? That means we picked a strategy and we go longer than the other people do. But in that delta, in that time between when they pit and we pit, we're exposed to a potential yellow, and unfortunately it happened. So all 3 of us went back to 15th and 14th. We made a bad tire choice on the stop after that for Jack, which really hampered our performance, and we finished where we finished.
Yeah.
No fault of Jack's, or no fault of anyone's, to be honest with you, that weekend. We rolled a Road America. Last year we were just okay. There was his first year at Road America. We go there this year, and Jack is just on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately, literally almost, had the pole, And I was particularly proud. I got to say, I think our cars have a lot of speed in them this year. I think they have more speed in them than they had the year before, And that's the good news. Car's fast, Jack's fast. Especially when he's been to the place before.
Spirits are up.
That's great.
Confidence is up.
So first weekend, bad yellow. Nothing we can do about it. Second time, we were running. He didn't have a great start. He got shuffled to 6th, and he got back to 5th. But we ran 5th. Everything's fine. Getting towards the end of the race, and we were fast enough to win or finish 30 easy. And honestly, we had a brake failure that very rarely happens. It's nobody's fault, certainly not Jack's fault. and it's still being investigated today.
Yeah.
But it tore the car. Now it's funny, we didn't crash, but we had $50,000 in damage because it really hurt the car when it goes into those grass. On top of the part that failed, broke a bunch of pieces. The car had to be completely stripped that night, right, and get all the gravel out of all the places, right?
As Jim Meyer talked about so eloquently on his episode.
Yeah, literally. Why are we taking this car apart? Well, because we have to in this case, right? So the boys worked till 9 o'clock that night, got the car. So the next morning, we had to go out for qualifying. There was no shakedown to see if the car's okay. Boom, Jack has to be on the button. We go out for qualifying, and in the first set of tires, he's P2 or 3 or 1. I mean, like right away. And I'm like, holy cow, this is going to be good. Put our new set of tires on for the final push, and we had a little bit too much understeer in the car. Again, not Jack's fault. We ended up qualifying 9th, but left a little bit on the table. But we're okay with that, right? So we get to the race, starting 9th, and just first turn, first lap, Santino Ferrucci hit us in the back end and parked us. And
I'm getting to the start of that race in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah. So
you know where I'm going to go with that.
So we had to go back to dead last. We chose a strategy after we went dead last that rear view mirroring wasn't great, and probably would do it differently when we get in the crap like that. The series is so competitive. So one misstep from the driver or from the engineer strategist, you're done.
Yeah.
You're not going to pass people on the track real easy, right?
That's obvious to everybody now.
It just is what it is. So I feel really bad, number one, for our sponsors, the people that are helping us, that we're not getting the results. There is good news. We got a lot of speed. We got a lot more speed than we've had in the past. The crew is working well together. The over-the-wall guys are very, very good this year, which I'm very happy about. Jack is learning, every new track we go to, he's getting stronger at. So we go to Iowa this week. He was there in Indy Light and did well, so at least he'd been there before.
He's comfortable about the track.
So we get in there, we get some practice time with the rookies early on, and we'll see where we land. It's a double race, Tim. It's Friday, Saturday night, and it's a bull ring, and it is fast. It's 17-second laps, and stuff happen quick. When you pit under green, you lose 2 laps.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If everything goes well.
If everything goes well, that's right.
The Delta, man, Delta, fly Delta, you know. Let's get back to that Sunday race at Road America, though. The start, because I'm sure you've looked at it. I mean, you looked at it while it was happening.
Yeah.
I mean, but then, you and I had that conversation. I'm stammering because I want to know how I want to get into this. But you and I had that conversation before where I told you, you know what? If you cause somebody damage by just being kind of like out of control, shouldn't your team have to help pay for the damage you cause? And you go, well, where do you start going there? You know?
There's no liability.
Where's the judge and jury in that situation? But there were definitely a couple of drivers that were a little bit over the top. Will Power was one of them. I think it's pretty obvious. Now, I know IndyCar actually, I think, had a little conference call with its PR reps the other day saying, because some people really tweeted about it,
Yeah.
because it was obvious to everybody and said, hey, this is in-house. I mean, it's intramural. Let's keep the criticism down to a dull roar, so to speak. But what would you say to the drivers, and in particular, one driver after that race was over? And I'm talking about Will Power and the way he seemed hell-bent to get to the front.
There's
no matter
a couple.
What.
Will was one. Ferrucci is another.
Yeah.
I would say, listen, guys, you both have good cars. We got a long race to go. Here. What are we doing? Jack didn't hit anybody.
Right.
And it all stacked up in front of Jack. He managed not to hit anybody, but you guys can't seem to do that.
Yeah.
So now. That's the reality of it. I mean, okay, I understand that the starts of these races, you got to make hay, or restarts. You got to go for it, right?
Yeah.
And you need a level of aggression and mixed in their smarts, right? And sometimes it leaves your body. I mean, think about Portland last year with us, running P2, P3, and here comes Hunter Ray, lawn dart, and took us out, right?
Yeah.
Graham said yesterday that Will apologized to him. I can tell you that Ferrucci apologized to Jack, and the teams have apologies, schmologies, right? The deal's done. We got to have and this is what makes Dixon so great. He's got this mixture of patience and aggression that flies somewhere in the 3/4 range that's just perfect, because you're either too conservative or too aggressive.
Yeah.
Ferrucci and Will are out here, right?
Yeah.
On that particular day, okay? And you got to have that, right? It's hard to teach that, right? But you got to land somewhere. You got to land somewhere here to be really successful, right? And that's what Dixon has always just managed to do.
Yeah.
And
well, I think that comes from his Star Wars background. Use the Force, Scott. Use the Force.
He uses it.
But here's the thing, and I'm going back on this because I criticized on Twitter, Will, for being a little bit. But then I looked, looking back on it, and I'm going, well, he's sitting there and he's trying to make a move, and here's Ryan Hunter-Reay, and Ryan Hunter-Reay looks like he's kind of making a move inside, then he goes back out.
Yeah.
And then Will runs up behind him. Okay,
So there are I get it.
And we're talking about
just fractions of
we're talking about making split-second decisions like this, going 180 miles, 160 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Will definitely came over on Graham.
Yeah.
But the guy who really knocked him off the track, really, was the guy who won the race.
Yeah.
Felix Rosenquist, who was following Will, to the promised land.
He did. And by the way, Ferrucci finished 6th after taking us out.
Exactly.
So, I don't know how. Listen, I've talked to my partners, my drivers, my team, and you ask me, what do you do? How do you keep everyone motivated to go? I don't think it's that hard, actually, because my guys are mostly motivated anyways, except to say, listen, guys, you can see we have everything we need here. We have all the physical things we can buy. We have that, check.
Yeah.
We have a great group of people that are working toward a common goal. We don't have any tension or stress. Check. We got that. We got a driver that's capable of going fast. We got a car that is capable of going fast. We're just not getting it done. So what do we got to do to get past that last thing? And I can tell you and I've asked my guys, self-critique yourself. You do usually anyways. You don't need me. You know where you've messed up.
Yeah.
In our case, we need to be a little stronger strategy-wise on the stand, and that involves me and the engineers and stuff. In IMSA, we know every situation. We've seen it. We've lived it for years. In IndyCar, I've got a brand-new engineer who's unbelievably good but hasn't been in charge of making the call yet. He's learning. I'm on the stand with him. I haven't done it full-time before myself. I'm learning, right? And the support staff that are up there also. So we've kind of got this – I'm just talking about self-looking at my situation,
yeah.
Right? What did that? What caused us not to go for it after we were back in the crap after we got hit, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, we had something happened that we can't do anything about. Now what are we going to do? How are we going to get out of this, right? And then that leads off to offshoots of options, right?
Yeah.
So.
Was that on Sunday? Was the car? How affected was the car after the hit? I mean, how
the rear
performance-wise?
The right rear wing end plate was crushed, but it hung on. So I don't know that it really hurt performance. So I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that.
But see, you've got to. I mean, you just touched on it without saying it. You're in an interesting situation right here as a team owner now and running this team. Is after the first 4 races, y'all kind of have what it takes, meaning from an equipment standpoint,
sure,
to be in the like I said,
top 5,
the sharp end of
Yep.
the stick here. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So that has to be on. I don't know. Is that the carrot? For
carrot.
everybody now, because they know if you take care of the knitting here, good results are going to follow.
No question.
Yeah.
And that's what we preach.
Yeah.
And it's the truth. It's how I feel, and it's the truth. We'll get what we deserve soon, and we just got to stay after it. We think it bodes well for, the Andretti Technical Alliance has really been good to us this year, and I think it bodes well for going to Mid-Ohio and the Indy 500, right? Our next 2 races, Andretti's have always been strong at, right?
Yeah.
Or, sorry, after Iowa. They do fine at Iowa too, but Mid-Ohio and Indianapolis 500, I'm really looking forward to see. And listen, you got to give shouts out to, Honda's 4 for 4.
Yeah.
This year, I got to give shout out to Jack, my driver. I mean, he's been on the front row of half the races this year so far. I mean, I think
that's what I'm talking about.
So there's a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Wait a minute, am I going to hear you give a shout out to Chip Ganassi? I mean,
they're doing a hell of a job.
I know.
They are, but again, they've just got everything lined up for them.
Yeah,
right? Which happens.
Yeah.
Now, Chip's also had bad runs, right? Like we all have. Like I'm in the middle of right now.
Well, that's what's interesting is Scott didn't have a great day on Sunday.
No, he didn't. And by the way, he stalled the car in the pit lane.
There you go. Meanwhile, Felix Rosenquist. That's the beauty of running two cars, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but you see, if you watch, if you guys go back and watch that pass he did on O'Ward at the end, that is a classic.
Yes.
Into the race, I got to do something. He shoved his way through. I think part of the tires were on the grass in an instant, and that's the kind of stuff you got to be willing to do at the right time. At the right time.
Mike, has IndyCar, because you've been around, you're about 12, 14 years younger than me, 16 years younger than me. I'm 66, so I'll let you guess how old you are.
Sure.
Has IndyCar ever had, do you think, a stronger – I'm not talking about names, but these guys can – almost everybody in that paddock, like you were talking about a while ago, there's no quarter given. I mean, almost all of these guys are super stout drivers.
Any given strategy, anyone can win.
Yes.
Across the whole field.
Yeah.
Because the cars are so equal now.
So where do you find the difference? I mean, like you just talked about, what I'm getting to here is you almost count on luck kind of going your way, because a yellow, you don't know when a yellow's coming.
Nope.
This isn't a competition yellow like in NASCAR, the first 25 laps, or you know what I mean. I mean, so I guess frustrating may not be the right word, but just how head scratching is it to try to figure out where you can find that little extra?
Well, speaking of yellows, we do look at the historical yellows, like when they've come the last 4 years. So we do have an idea of a pattern potentially, right?
Yeah, but you're still counting on something breaking or somebody making a mistake.
You still don't ever know, ever know.
Yeah.
The yellow flag for Jack at Road America was the first yellow 4-course caution in 3 seasons at Road America with IndyCar.
Exactly.
As an example, right? And then they came Then they came a couple after, right? So it is so hard to differentiate yourself. So it's a combination of things, of positioning and unbelievable pit work. And you think about how we analyze pit work. When we look at the pit stop, we count the time. It's like an offensive coordinator looking at film, right? We analyze the minute the gun comes off the guy's lap and heads to the nut. That time between that and that, we analyze that time. How quick did he get to the nut? How quick was the tire on the ground? We look at every single thing we can to gain half a second or a quarter of a second on a pit stop. Think about how a driver comes into the pit lane, into his pit box, and out of it. How quickly is that time from 40 miles an hour to 0 and 0 to 40 again?
Yeah.
Right? That's all counts on track position, right?
Yeah.
Also to consider, there's so many things that people don't look at when we're racing. So, for instance, sometimes we'll do an undercut. So everyone can go to a certain number on fuel usually, but sometimes you come in early and do an undercut. Sometimes you go late and go an overcut, and there's reasons you do that. Are you in traffic? Are you being held up before the stop? Where are you going to come out when you do pit? Because we can track. We have a little dot on our timing and scoring that shows us where we'll come out after our pit stop.
Yeah.
So we can see how Will Power did compared to us. Like, he's out and he's already ahead of our dot. We know we're in trouble already.
Yeah.
There's so many things to analyze and try to get perfect that you're bound to screw one of them up every single weekend.
And then you stick a fuel probe in there. I'm not talking about you guys. And the fuel probe doesn't open properly like it should because it's 105 degrees outside.
That's happening.
And you've seen teams, and boom, now you're going to Plan G, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the strategy. I mean, I'm an F1 fan too, and I think the strategy they employ, the overcut, undercut, is just remarkable. How almost precise it is when you consider the human element involved. And let's get real quick. Iowa. This to me is the intriguing part, always been the intriguing part of IndyCar, which is underappreciated because, like I said, you can't put fans in the cars and let them understand the difference between driving at Texas, driving on the road course at Indianapolis, driving on Road Atlanta, which is 4 miles long. I mean, Road America, which is 4 miles long, and the laps go on forever. And then all of a sudden now you're doing a 16-second lap at Iowa.
Yep.
Explain to people what a premium that puts on basically the drivers you have in the cars, but also the setup of the cars.
Yep.
How much beefier does the car have to be this week than last week, for example?
Experience is really the key there on both sides. chassis-wise and driver-wise. That's why the experienced guys have an advantage, right? It doesn't mean the inexperienced don't have a shot by any means, right? But from a setup standpoint and a historical setup standpoint, Andretti have done X for 5 years, say, at Iowa. But more importantly, with this new body that we have on today, we started with an 18. So from 18 till 18 and 19 are most relevant for us.
Yeah.
We understand tire wear, which is excessive. We run out of tires before we run out of fuel at Iowa.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when's that crossover point of when it's pointless to be out there anymore, right? To mechanical setup, to the driver's understanding. If I run high, they have two grooves there. The higher the groove, the easier I am on my right rear tire because I'm always protecting my right rear tire at Iowa. You can imagine that, and the lower you hold it, the more bind you're putting on that right rear. So can I get up and run in the middle or on the high groove and just go easy on my tires when I can? If I'm not battling or if I'm following someone in line, let's get up there and let's clear. Let's let the tires cool a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that dynamic, when to push, when not to press, that type of thing.
Can I ask it sounds like a dumb question. I don't think it is. Do you get better gas mileage running the low groove because you're going a shorter distance?
No.
I mean, does that even compute?
No, it's just Iowa is a track that I think in qualifying it's close to flat all the way. So you're just going to hold it down. It doesn't matter, right? In the race, it's just a matter of lift and how long you lift. When and how long a duration is off the throttle. It's just tenths of gallons, right? It's just little bits. But after a while, they add up to a gallon, right? And they can get you an extra 2 laps or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know this, but I don't think the duration of the lap matters so much as the duration of off throttle. Really matters.
Yeah. So I'm talking about that. If you run the high groove, you're actually going
You're
farther.
Going further. I get it.
Yeah. The Bill Elliott.
Yeah.
Remember the Bill Elliott thing? That's why he ran low because he ran a shorter race than everybody.
Right.
Because like he figured the distance of the track was measured basically in the middle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So he was. Is that cheating? I don't know.
That's not cheating.
Hey, last thing. What do you want to see out of your team this weekend and moving forward? Where do you think you guys? How often do brakes fail on an Indy car?
Never.
Exactly. So. Is that an aberration? How do you?
Well, we hope so. I mean, we're doing everything we can mechanically, preparation-wise on our side. But what I expect we get some finishes in the top 10 here.
Yeah.
And nothing crazy, right? We just want to get some kind of mojo going as we approach Mid-Ohio, our home track, and Indy 500, the most important race we do.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for anything to get Jack's confidence to a higher spot right now, to be honest with you.
And what you've learned about your team is I'm watching as much as I can on television because, obviously the media is limited even who can be there. But but I think your pit stops have been
really good.
Really good.
Really good. I mean, we're in the top. I think we're the solid top 5 or 6 teams overall so far.
Yeah.
If you just look at it from stop to stop, we had one little snafu ourselves at Road America number 2. First time we had any snafu at all. So, but it happens again. You know, we're talking about 6.5 seconds. We're flowing 18 gallons of fuel and changing 4 tires, 6.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Any little thing goes wrong is magnified. So I'm really proud of that. And I think it bodes well, and maybe bodes well if we do the pit stop competition at Indy that our guys are in good shape to try that maybe.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back at some pretty soon later date to talk with Mike Shank and whether this team, like you said, man, no matter what goes on a race weekend or in the start of a season, the fact that you kind of have in your back pocket knowing that if things go well for you finally, you have a race car that's capable. I think you've got a driver that's capable. Yep. You've got a team that's capable. You got to figure you keep knocking on the door, somebody's going to answer, right?
I hope so. That's the idea.
Well, until next time, this is Tim May for Mike Shank. Thanks for joining us on yet another episode of At Speed Podcast.